89 new galleries, the Ashmolean's now able to show more of its treasures than ever before. We'll have more on the new displays later, but first, some poetry. A new film, Bright Star, has been part adapted from Andrew Motion's biography of John Keats. It's directed by Jane Campion and stars Ben Whishaw. We spoke to all three of them about nightingales, young love, and a life tragically cut short.
Why should people be interested in Keats? Two things. A life which is almost more moving than any other that I've ever come across, full of heroism, pathos, damage, magnificence, you name it, it's all there. And then there's the writing, one of the great geniuses of the English language, who writes in a language which is so gorgeous, so voluptuous, so intensely actual in its realization of things, that even though it was written 200 and some years ago, we read it and feel that we're immediately there. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run.
He transformed the English language in a way. I mean, when you read his poetry, it's so sensuous and it's so gorgeous, and the rhythms of it are so unique that he expands the way you think in a way, because we do think through our words.
A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness.
You've read Endymion?
I'm not clever with poetry.
Well, neither, it seems, am I.
Bright Star is the story of Keats as discovered through Fanny Brawne as she meets him for the first time in 1818 and falls in love with him. I felt haunted by their love story, and I felt like touched beyond, I don't know, it really undid me. I felt touched by the innocence and the tenderness of the story. It felt like something I needed in my life.
Mr. Keats.
I think for people that don't know Keats, my experience may comfort them, because I was actually terrified by poetry and Keats poetry when before I began this project. And one of the reasons I read Andrew Motion's biography was to, I don't know, try and get over it and to perhaps read his poetry in context.
It was really only once I'd got the part that I really understood what I was undertaking. And then I suppose it became more and more daunting because you realise it's impossible really to do justice to somebody so complex and I think someone really graced with a kind of genius.
My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past and Lethe-wards had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light-winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beech and green and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease.
Ode to a Nightingale is one of my favourite poems in the whole world. That, you know, what's so special and unique for me is that it's a meditation and it's always new to you. It always strikes you in a slightly different way, and, you know, it's based on a real sighting of a nightingale, but then it also describes imaginative thought, or thought itself.
I vividly do remember first reading Keats and thinking, well, that's pretty extraordinary. And my English teacher said, well, you should read his letters because I think you'd like them. So I just walked round and round and round the playing field reading Keats's letters, and it was a very windy, cold autumn afternoon. And I couldn't tell when I got in whether I was crying because it was so damn cold or whether it was because I was being so moved by the letters. I think it was probably the letters, actually, but I was glad, being a 16-year-old boy, I was glad to have the excuse of it being a cold day as well.
For myself, I know not how to express my devotion to so fair a form. I want a brighter word than bright, a fairer word than fair. I almost wish we were butterflies and lived but 3 summer days. 3 such days with you I could fill with more delight than 50 common years could ever contain.
I think for me, possibly, the letters are even more fascinating than the poetry. There's everything in them and expressed in this very, very beautiful language.
I have 2 luxuries to brood over in my walks. Your loveliness and the hour of my death. Oh, that I could have possession of them both in the same minute. I never knew before what such a love as you have made me feel was. I did not believe in it. But if you will fully love me, though there may be some fire, it will not be more than we can bear when moistened and bedewed with pleasures.
I remember when we were rehearsing that I had this moment of discovery that the intensity of that love was really to do with the fact that it was existing in this shadow of death.
I've coughed blood again. I fear the disease has the upper hand.
And I'm sure that when you can see your end, really, you embrace life with a different level of hunger and passion, I think.
This living hand, now warm and capable of earnest grasping, would, if it were cold, and in the icy silence of the tomb, so haunt thy days and chill thy dreaming nights, that thou wouldst wish thine own heart dry of blood, so in my veins red life might stream again, and thou be conscience calmed. See, here it is, I hold it towards you.
I think one of the very sad things about Keats is that he thought he was going to die forgotten. And I think he truly believed that.
It was the fact that he felt that he hadn't been allowed to live long enough to fulfill himself as a poet that really, really tore at his heart.
I suppose there's always something very special about people who've been cut off in their prime. And I was actually just being here brought home to me again the fact that he died when he was 25, and I turned 29 last week, and I was thinking, my goodness.
When I think back on my life and I think what was I doing at, when our story started at 23 to 25, I was at art school, and I was trying wrestling with what the point of my life was, really. I didn't understand it, and Keats had already achieved so much.
I published my first book of poems at the same age that he was when he died. And I can remember thinking at the time, because my obsession was already fully formed by then, but I can remember thinking at the time, this is a bit late. What would Keats have done had he lived? Well, he does live. His DNA goes out into a lot of very good poets, and it's still around now.